Boruto episode 14, The Path That Boruto Can See. This was definitely a good episode. Of course, this pairing with the last one, I would say these are the best two episodes so far of the series, getting into really the end of this arc. This was officially the end of this very first arc. We're going into whatever they're going to be doing for the next, half of this season. And I'm excited for that, for sure. I really enjoyed what they did with this episode. They did what I expected. I even went back to my old, my last week review to be like, alright, well, what exactly was it that I said? And I figured that they were going to do kind of the Naruto / Boruto sort of thing, where they ultimately complete it without anyone dying. I mentioned last week that I really would have liked it if they did kill her, simply due to the fact that with where we are in this series, most people watching this, most likely, are Naruto fans. So going from the beginning of Naruto all the way through Shippuden, and the way that series ends, the Great War and all that stuff with people dying left and right, and some of them mattering, some of them don't, but there's a lot of death there. I wouldn't mind seeing this character who also doesn't show up, in the films. That's like a big thing where there are a couple of characters here that just do not show up in like that very first Boruto movie. So it's like, alright, well, if they started off by the first character that doesn't show up in the movie is gone because they're dead, I wouldn't hate that. I would actually like to see it get super dark, but figured that wouldn't happen, and of course that's not what happened. It was still a really good episode though, and I am actually excited to see where this goes, because they do seem to be sticking with Sumire, and she's even in the promo where it talks about a new path, and it's like, oh, is she transferring? We don't know what's happening, and it's like, oh, let's keep this a secret from Boruto. So I don't know exactly what that means, if they're maybe redoing sort of the Anbu Black Ops, that sort of deal, or exactly how that's supposed to be playing out, or I guess technically the Foundation, because it was two separate things, but it was all under the same umbrella, but technically it was two separate things. But all of it was kind of dark. Even just the normal Anbu Black Ops stuff tends to be kind of dark. So I don't know exactly what that meant, but it was she's still in there. They don't know if she's transferring or how that's going to play out, but there's something with the continuation of her character. But I really like the way that this episode played out. Of course, it starts with actually a flashback to an earlier episode with Konohamaru when he was doing his summon. I thought that was a flashback to Naruto at first, because they did the blurry thing. I thought it was going to be that, where they were talking about the devastation and how we have to stop this before it gets that bad. But it's actually just Kakashi saying this is typically how this works with the summons. And he mentions, which this is something I forgot, but he mentions the fact that the animals typically, even though they may not be able to find out where their summoned creatures live, it is on the same planet. But Nue is different, where he's in an actual different dimension. So I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I totally forgot that. I think I was talking about that in the last review, but I forgot that they ever said that. If they said it before, which I'm sure they have, it's just years and years later, they say it again, okay, well, this is kind of how this normally works, but Nue is definitely different, and I can tell that we can't trace this creature or the caster, because they're in an actual alternate dimension. It's not like they're somewhere far that we can't find on the planet. They are completely gone in a separate dimension. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting way to kind of kick off the explanation as to how basically Boruto and Mitsuki have to be the ones to solve everything. For it's his show, so of course. But we do get Kakashi explaining that we do have Naruto actually using his Sage Mode, which is what I was talking about in my last review. Okay, well, they can't use chakra, but if he went Sage Mode, that was the whole purpose of that was that it's not technically chakra, but he still has the same level of strength. They're very close to it. So we do actually see him using that, at least to try to find out where Nue went. But it was okay, well, this isn't working. We don't know what to do. Cuts to Boruto. He's falling through, and basically he lands in this alternate dimension. It's him, and he finds Nue, and they had a great opening action sequence. It was short, but man, the animation was so freaking good during that action sequence. I was like, this is amazing. I could tell that it went up, and they do this every once in a while when they have their epic battles, when Naruto went full Kyuubi mode versus Pain. They changed the art style. I was like, alright, let's go nuts with this, and they they change it up. They definitely did that here, where it wasn't like that, because that was that went kind of loose art with it, but it was still over the top and dramatic, just so they could do crazier things. This was more movie style, where it's sharper, and the part where he grabs onto Nue and he's climbing up, that was half a second, but you could see a million different detailed hairs. I was like, that's an insane amount of detail just for that little second where he's and he's grinning and he's climbing, and then he gets up, and maybe it was only God, I don't think that even lasted 10 full seconds, all of that fight sequence he actually had before he kind of backs off. that whole sequence, I was like, the animation here is insanely intense. It was definitely movie quality for like just that little bit, and I definitely appreciated it. It looked really great. Him on Nue looked really good, and the part where he was like, he just got his clone next to him, and they're running up Nue, and then they jump in the air, and they're flipping and throwing each other and stuff. I was like, that is a great sequence. All of that landing with, leading to the culmination of him dropping down with the kunai and stabbing Nue like straight in the forehead. Great little action sequence, and then Mitsuki kind of joins in, and they team up, and Boruto has the idea to use kunai, explosive kunai tags, and he actually drops like the giant ropes on Nue while Mitsuki basically leads him around and distracts him a little. So great planning there. And then of course when Mitsuki is like, all right, cool, you know, great idea. That was nice to see from Boruto as well. It was like, okay, this whole thing about him not being his dad, which he totally is, because especially with the way this episode ended, it was like that's exactly what would have happened if Naruto did it. But some of the stuff in there is definitely cool. And this was one of those moments where it's like, Naruto's had those moments as well where he randomly thinks of something smart. But I feel like it was super, super rare to ever see that when he was young. I feel like it only happened during like individual fights, like when he was fighting against Neji. That was one of those moments, and that was, you know, much later in the series anyway when they were doing the tuning exams. But that was when he started to finally have those moments of like, oh, if I think about what I'm doing, I might be able to win this fight. And this was, you know, it's kind of the same concept, but it was much younger, so it still made a bit of a difference to me. And it was a totally different experience. Like that was, you know, his first experience with this creature, and with Naruto, he still hadn't even really gotten there. He had some crazy moments, but he still hadn't gotten, it was like right before he actually got to the part of, holy crap, here's like giant effing monsters and all this extra stuff coming in. So it was still a bit different, but it was like, okay, he's thinking on his feet. He has the idea of, you know, dropping the ropes and having, you know, Mitsuki help him out. So that was definitely a cool moment. And then Mitsuki had this super cool snake lightning move where he just lifts his arm up and like yellow lightning's about to shoot out. But of course Sumire is still there, and she brings up like this water wall to stop the attack. And that's when we kind of go into the backstory. They talk, it was surprisingly calm. Like Mitsuki was, you know, kind of going for her, but it was calm. We got like, you know, the bit of flashback there where she talks about how, you know, technically what happened with her parents being kind of exiled after the Great War didn't really have anything to do with her, but she was raised by them for this purpose, and that's what she's trying to do. And her only real moment of like clarity was when she would be with her mom, who would, like, when she was combing her hair. So I thought they had a pretty decent flashback for her, giving a little bit of extra detail as to why she's going through with these, you know, really crazy plans that technically had nothing to do with her, and, you know, why she chose to stick with those ideals that her angry father created, you know, in the past. So I thought that was actually pretty well done. And then we go into the fight sequence between Mitsuki and Sumire, and that was pretty good, because honestly, I thought if like they have to stop Mitsuki from fighting her based on the last episode. Apparently she's a good fighter, because we see that in this one, but I thought for sure, like, if Mitsuki went at her, he was going to kill her, and I'm like, well, obviously that can't happen. The episode will be over now, because he'll go after her, and there's nothing Boruto can do, because he's good, but he's not nearly as good as Mitsuki, and clearly, Sumire isn't either. But then they fight, and I was like, oh, I guess that's not the case. Apparently, her main weakness is people sneaking up on her. She sucks as far as, like, actual awareness, but in a just normal fight, if she can see you, she can actually take you on. And I was like, oh, I was very shocked by that, because she just got dropped like twice in the last episode because somebody does a little sneak attack and it's like, boom, you're down. And that was it. So that's what I was expecting. It's like, oh, I guess if she knows you're coming, she's got some actual skill. So it was a pretty decent fight sequence between the two of them as well. And she's going through, she's using like her water style. She does like the water bullet thing, which I thought was cool, because we've only seen like one other person really do the water bullet thing. And I can't remember the name of the Mizukage, I think it is, for the water village. But we saw him do it during the Great War, and I was like, oh, that's cool that she was using like that technique. And they have the part where they do like the clone thing, and Mitsuki hits her clone and it, you know, bursts in the water, and which we also haven't seen in a while. He did like the wind slice technique, which we haven't seen since, I think the only character that ever did that was the dude that actually had the katana in the original series that Kabuto killed. He was like the only person I remember ever doing that technique, and it was because he had an actual katana and he would do like the wind slice technique, and then he died really early on, and that was I feel like the last time we ever saw that technique used was the wind slice actual technique. And I was like, holy crap, that was a callback for real. So we get to see two techniques that have only been used like by one other character, one from like I think that was during the tuning exam, so I think it was like season 2 or maybe like early season 3 when Kabuto like killed that guy. But that was the last time we ever saw that. So the wind slice technique came in. He ends up hitting her clone. She pops in the water, and they have this sequence where she went for the kill. Like, she shoots him, and it's just like boom, and a hole goes through his head. I was like, dang, she was not joking around. But of course, that was the snake clone. But I was just like, holy crap, she just popped a hole in his head. She was going for the kill there. But they have their back and forth, and of course, Boruto, not being like his father in any way, shape, or form, jumps in between the two people he doesn't want fighting. And he ends up taking, a kunai to the arm, and he does his, totally unlike his father speech thing. And it ultimately stops everything. It was done in a fairly cool way because it does show that the ghost incidents still actually affect the caster herself. And I thought that was actually a cool way to do it. It wasn't just the speech. It technically was. But it wasn't like, oh, she's only listening to them and that's it. It was that she was actually affected, just like everyone else was. She just knew what was happening, and she didn't kind of fight it as much, so she was in a lot more control than everyone else was, but she was still a bit under that influence of rage and hatred, just like everyone else was through the ghost incident. So it was like she had those ideals, but then that's coupled at the end with her still being controlled just like everyone else was by that hatred of the actual ghost attaching to her. So I was like, alright, that was a cool way to do it. It's still like that heroic, the hero speech that ends everything, but they had like that extra little element where it was like, alright, that makes it a bit more acceptable. I guess it's not just the speech was great and then the villain was like, you're right, and then they're done. She was being convinced through what was true. Like, it was like, hey, all those times that you legitimately seemed worried about things, and Mitsuki even says, like, once again, you went to a conclusion I never would have thought of, but it does make me think of this moment when I went to kind of confront her a little bit to get like that last bit of information I needed. And one of the things she said was, I want this to be over quickly. And he's like, I believe that that was true, and I think she really meant that. And she thought about that moment, was like, I did. And so that ultimately releases her from the ghost influence as well. And that ultimately leads her to choosing to sacrifice herself. She still, even though the ghost left, she still wanted to go through with those ideals. And then they have the extra moment where it truly was just the speech, but it was also, once again, it was like still the speech, but there was always an actual moment of something else being the catalyst for the speech that made sense to me. So at first it was the ghost, and then when she wanted Nue to take her chakra completely and then detonate, Nue wouldn't do it because Nue, Boruto mentions, like, it believes that you're its parent. So I thought that was really good. I was like, I actually like that. Still the speech thing, like I said, but there was actually a really decent reason for the speech. It wasn't just, I don't want this to happen, and then it doesn't. It was like, this is actually something that this other creature decided. Because the creature, if it weren't for the creature being so attached to Sumire, that Boruto wouldn't have had the chance to make like that hero speech. Like, he had his first one and it was like, oh cool, but she still went through, was like, absorb all my chakra and then detonate and kill everybody, but it wouldn't do it because it loved her. So I thought that was cool. I was like, alright, well, it's still the hero speech afterwards, but he never would have had that moment if this thing wasn't already attached to her. So, two hero speeches, but both of them I thought were actually deserved rather than just the typical shonen, any anime, sort of heroic speech where it's like, don't do this, and then they don't. So I was happy to see that it played out that way, where ultimately it was other stuff that led to the speech, and then it just made sense. He was kind of just saying what was happening. It wasn't even a heroic speech that second time. It was more like, this is exactly what's happening, and he was just explaining it in full detail so that she understood, and it's like, oh crap. And then that ultimately stopped everything. The seal breaks, and this alternate dimension comes crumbling down. They all make their escape, and it seems like Nue ends up dying because, like, it protected them. It was really weird, because I was like, why is this symbol randomly coming down out of the sky? So I still didn't understand that part, because it was like literally the symbol itself landed on their backs, and Nue protected them and got hit, and then just jumped off and left, but they were also going into like a tiny hole anyway, so I guess, I don't know, maybe it knew it couldn't escape that way, but they end up escaping, and they think that Nue died, and ultimately, the way things play out, Sai comes along and it's like, hey, you basically were a product of something dark, can I help you? Like, he basically stuck with his guns as to what he said the entire time, like, I want to help whoever is a part of this, because they're in the same boat right now that I was when I like first got in, I mean, obviously he wouldn't say first got introduced to the series, but when he first came to the village. So I thought it was really cool that the first thing he says is like, will you let me help you? And he really stuck to his guns about helping this person and getting them to the point that he's at now. So I thought that was really cool, and he explains like, you know, no harm will come to her and stuff like that. She was just basically used from, you know, just a much darker past, like something that used to exist in the village that's no longer here. She won't be harmed for almost being forced into this lifestyle. So I thought that was actually a great way to do it, and Sai is going to help her. And like I said, we have the promo, so we don't exactly know what's happening with her, but there's something going on that they want to keep from Boruto, so it's probably not the best news ever, but I thought it was a pretty well done episode, so I certainly enjoyed it. Of course, it ends, it's morning, the kids end up just going back to school, so, you know, that's kind of how things end off, and we have Nue still surviving, technically, and even Boruto says, like, it's really small, but I see that Nue is attached to, like, your left hand, and they showed, like, the little eye pop up on her palm. I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool, and that just leaves that open as well, for if they want to make her a more relevant character in the future. She also has, like, her big thing, which is like, alright, well, I'll summon Nue, which they mentioned was much smaller in the alternate dimension, so that could be a simple thing to do. Like, okay, well, when it comes back, it'll be, like, much smaller, but it can grow if it, like, starts to fight a bunch of enemies, and then it'll be better and better as the battle goes on, and it absorbs, you know, more and more enemies. So, I thought that was a cool way to do it, just some little dialogue that they could use to bring her back, as well as this fairly powerful creature. So I like that idea. I thought that was definitely cool, and I'm excited to see where we're going for, you know, this next arc. We have our new ending, which I thought was very cool. I like this way more than the original one. I didn't hate the song, like, you know, the Yeah Yeah song. It was alright, but I like this one a lot better. I think the visuals are definitely way cool. I like the visuals for the other ending, but I felt the visuals for the ending, the first ending, were pretty much the same as the visuals that we have for the current opening, where it's like they're just really brightly colored and stuff. So it didn't make that big of a deal to me. But this I really liked. It was that sort of black and white style where you get, oddly, it was kind of like an opening. You know, Naruto's had endings like that where they do recap stuff. But typically, you get that in anime when it's like way down the line, you get recaps of like, oh, remember all these great moments? It was like, remember the last couple of weeks? You know, like the last 14 episodes? So it was kind of funny that it's recapping, you know, this current arc. As it, just as it ended, it makes it even weirder that it, like, we're going into the next step. And it's just going to keep recapping, like, the last, you know, arc. So it's oddly specific what it's recapping. But I liked it. I like the song. I like the style of it, where it'll be a set location and then you see the images on the ground or on the TV or on the wall or, like, outside when it shows Mitsuki and somebody, like, in the hospital. And I like that. And it shows those different characters. And it was really funny at the end because we know where things are headed, where it's going to be Boruto, Mitsuki, and Sada as the three-man squad. But it was so funny the way it ended. And it starts with Boruto and, like, some of his greatest moments, and then Mitsuki and some of his moments. And it just made me laugh so much because I'm like, I know the next person isn't going to be Sada because she's barely been in the show. And of course it had to be Sumire because she was, like, the main female villain. And I thought that was just so funny because I'm like, it's supposed to be, you know, those three characters. But Sada has hardly been in this first arc. And it's so funny. Like, Chocho, I feel, is more important, at least right now, than Sada is in this series. And it's so freaking funny to see that. But when it was doing that, I'm like, these are supposed to be like our three main characters, like, you know, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura. But Sada has had nothing in the series so far. And they're doing, like, the big, you know, montage moments in their silhouettes. I'm like, the third person isn't going to be Sada. And of course it's Sumire. So it made it seem like she's more important. And it's just, it was just really funny to me, like, knowing where things are headed for them being the three main characters. It was just super funny to me. Like, I know the female person here is not going to be Sada. And of course it was Sumire because she was the, you know, the main person. So it just made me laugh, like, just how important Sada should be and how clearly irrelevant they've made her so far, at least as far as the series. So I hope she gets a lot more time in general, because we've hardly had anything from her at all. Like, she had some epic moments, like the scene where it was the episode where they fight the movie star. That was great. Like, she was actually in that fight a bit, and I thought that was pretty cool, and I love that because they actually fought together. But that's like it. And she's had some moments where she spoke, but we haven't really gotten to see her fight that much. She's shown off some skills here and there. But I'm like, she's going to be one of the three main leads by the time we get to the tuning exams. And once we hit the teams, it's the three of them. And that's just how it's going to play out. And it's like, I feel like they should at least be showing her off somewhat. I mean, she's going to be one of the three main characters. And it's like, she's not even, she's almost like a side character that's irrelevant right now. And then she's eventually going to become one of the main leads. And it's so weird because it's like, we know how it's going to get, you know, in the future. And I mentioned that before, like with Shikadai and like how him and Boruto always hang out. I'm like, those dudes are effing gone. Like, once the three-man team shows up, it's these three. Everybody else is like, all right, get the F out of here. You're not as important anymore. So it's just kind of funny how it's played out so far. But I do love the new ending. Excited for a new opening, which probably won't happen, of course, until like the next season. But I like the new ending for sure, and you know, we're halfway through, so I'm excited for the next arc. But of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this episode, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, or least favorite parts. Definitely want to know what you guys think about the new ending. And of course, I want to know where you guys think we're headed for this next arc, what they're going to be doing with Sumire, since it seems like this will be, next week will kind of be like the epilogue for the arc, where it's like this is officially what's going to happen and how she's going to continue her role within the series. But for now, it'll probably be minor. Maybe it'll be like she won't die. Well, of course she won't die. But transferring schools, simple way to keep her alive and out, and you know, just kind of knocking out the irrelevant characters that don't show up like at all during the Boruto stuff, which once again they could easily change that. But I'm curious what they're going to do, so we'd love to know your theories on how that's going to play out. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about the ending of our first arc and how you guys, you know, feel about the way that it ended and everything like that. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.